Fast forward, you come our channel, you saw AGH Politics Avenue. Podcast stories are trending because make headlines. Then you may need to be Akroma or Hanidi Mahubrak se ene. Di kanyam so bit subscribe to the channel. Hit notification bell no so share na for front so answer into me enkabi. Eni di Mahubrak semu message say yanko yensemu. Yakwe yensemu aye protestics mo protest against Galamsey mo from who say aye anti Galamsey crusaders. Ene enya asem koto akra mo atimi a petition aye omanpen say NPP Bigwigs bi na danko Akuffo edu manim no omonhwe na omo prosecute omo because senior ye water bodies no asay no senior yare a efri eye insufimu edokro eye omanga na fo no omo eka ho bi a crime against humanity yemonwram yenhwe ne yeko ene de ba abra omo ajemre na omoji inchiremu ana omo boye inchiremu ewo chano yeso AGH Politics Avenue.
A protester at the recent #StopGalamseyNow demonstration has accused former President Nana Addo&Other Akuffo and other influential figures of being complicit in the illegal mining crisis, insisting that in any serious jurisdiction, they would already be behind bars. Speaking during the second day of the protest on Monday, the demonstrator claimed that the real financiers of Galamsey are well known but continue to walk free while only small-scale miners at the pits are arrested. He cited the likes of Chairman Wantumi, chief executive of Akroma Mining, and names mentioned in both Professor Frimpong Boateng's Galamsey report and international investigative pieces such as Al Jazeera's Gold Mafia exposé. The protester also accused former President Akuffo directly, calling him the worst president in the history of humanity, and arguing that he failed to live up to his reputation as a human rights lawyer. I expect this government, upon assumption of office, to actually go after these guys immediately and call for their prosecution. In any serious jurisdiction, these guys, who are the cause of this environmental genocide, should have been imprisoned. They are going after the little ones in the pits. They are not the sponsors of Galamsey. In any serious jurisdiction, Nana Addo&Other Akuffo should have been imprisoned by now. He should be in prison. He is not bigger than this nation. We voted him into power, and he presided over the widespread destruction of our water bodies and forests, he insisted. Even $97 million meant for the cathedral could have been used to build hospitals to treat Galamsey-induced kidney problems, he lamented. He further urged the government to declare a state of emergency in all illegal mining areas and revoke small-scale mining licenses issued in the last 15 years. According to him, only radical action will protect citizens from the dire health and environmental effects of mercury poisoning and polluted rivers. The protest, or
Mayabwa's report after the NPP visited the Kwenyako treatment plant, which has become unwholesome due to activities of illegal miners.
Standing at the banks of the Ǎrrěsť River in Kwenyako, the water now runs a thick brown. A few minutes walk into town, residents are struggling to cope. From boreholes and wells that produce visibly dirty water to food vendors lamenting the impact on their trade. The once dependable river has become a burden instead of a blessing. One visibly shaking elderly resident told Joy News,
I am Papa. I am Papa. Because of this, I am soon.
It's muye day. Mo say muye day ediane mujari.
You oko office do ban. There's no one. Samson is easy. I said why that was so. The whole central. One of Samson. I am penning from one papa yanki.
We once drank this water, but today we cannot even bathe with it. We vote for leaders, yet they do not act in our best interest.
You could go down on both sides. Everything we have. Hey, look. What is
Another resident preparing to bathe with water from a well explained she has no choice but to boil and treat the brownish water with alum before use.
So yeah, and yes, I am and so we are yes, I be even though yanum. But you see, the Moabim, too soon to see the end. Yes, by on Shamayang. So no, more Munja was I'm still for a most sense. It's not one Ebula, it's Bula and a chronic color name for Bula, sister, yes, sir. You see, so Yamiadum, and Mampoqua Bedomia, Boho too. You are high, yes, sir. Get you drive the
So that is it over there. You can take a closer look. That is so she's going to bath. She has to boil it before. Yes, that is from the borehole. She has to boil it before. So every day you have to boil it before.
Yes.
Say, is it going to be clean? Ebe clean kakra.
Along before and sana makudare.
Oh, okay. It has a boiling no. Odi alum nigum na kala nini te kakra.
After boiling the water, I add alum just to make it a bit clearer. Amidst the community's frustration, politicians have also waded into the debate. Director of Communications for Dr. Bawumia's campaign, Dennis Miracles Abwaje, speaking at the Kwenyako treatment plant, called on the government to propose fresh solutions to the Galamsey menace.
And simply telling the Galamseyers that if they manage to get the gold, whether through foul or fair means, he is ready to buy them. Again, he confirmed through his press engagement that indeed he could be buying gold from Galamseyers to as much as $4 billion out of the $6 billion he has exported. That for us, we believe, is a cause for concern. Because the president is giving us an indication that he could be buying illegal gold from criminals and exporting. And that is what he's anchoring his government's transformation plan on. Then we cannot trust and believe that he is going to put measures in place to end Galamsey. Because should he succeed at ending Galamsey, what he is telling us is that he may be running short of $6 billion, $4 billion out of $6 billion possible exports. We are begging, pleading, and appealing to the president and the NDC government that we beg him he should prioritize our lives and the environment over money. And that we are not interested in how much money he is getting from these criminals. If you want to move away from the data to how these things can be proven with the impact, that is where we are standing now. The fact that the Kwenyako water treatment plant for the first time have had a cost to shut down the water plant. The fact that the people of Kwenyako, Agoda East, Agoda West, Gomoa Central, and close to 11 districts do not have water to drink and do not have water to even wash their things is evidence enough to show that the situation has worsened. And we are sure that now that we have presented this to the government, they will take some decisive action and not continue to repeat the same old strategies they spoke against.
As the Ǎrrěsť River continues to flow muddy, residents of Kwenyako and surrounding towns are left to grapple with water scarcity and health risk. For them, the fight against Galamsey is no longer a political debate. It is a question of survival.
But at the end of the day, residents are asking, until when will this water continue to be this thick brown? They are calling on leaders, they are calling on the government to ensure that this very area, that is the Kwenyako area, they have potable water here to use.
For Joy News, I'm Jacqueline Ansama Yaboa.
Away from that, the largest opposition party is rebuilding, and delegates will soon decide who leads the party in 2028. Now, beyond personalities, this race is about answers: illegal mining and the environment, jobs and the cost of living, party unity and credibility with voters. This morning, we're testing ideas, not slogans. We'll ask about the NPP's record on Galamsey and what would change if Kennedy Agyapong's given the nod. And my guest is Kwesi Kwarteng, spokesperson for Kennedy Agyapong. You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And, Morning to you.
Good morning to you too. So let's start simply. I'm going to start by asking what you think is the single clearest change Mr. Japan would bring that Ghanaians would feel in, say, a year.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me say that I just watched the footage which was just played, and I've been away for a while, and I must take the opportunity to commend my good brother, Dennis Miracles Abuaje, the entire team for holding the fort, and of course holding the NDC to accountable when it comes to the Galamsey conversation. I mean, as a government, certainly when you are coming into an office, you campaign based on certain policies and ideas. If you recall, one of the tools that the NDC weaponized was the Galamsey fight, which I think going forward, at no point should politicians ever do that again. When we weaponize the fight against Galamsey, against ourselves, and look into our faces and say that Mr. Akuffo was a problem. Today, Akuffo is no longer in power, and it appears, and successfully so, that the problem of Galamsey or the Galamsey menace has rather even increased and escalated. Just 1 year in power. And of course, we do not expect the worst, but from the trajectory, if you look at it, just supposing from what they said they are going to do, clearly you realize that I'm not sure they've even done even a percentage of it. I mean, the whole of last night up to today, I have had the opportunity to review the campaign manifesto of the NDC. And like I indicated, the campaign is based on those policies and ideas on how they are going to address the Galamsey. If you look at even the abridged form of their campaign manifesto, page 61, for instance, they outline how they are going to do it. So I was trying to check whether maybe the comprehensive manifesto too, they may have something different on the approach they are going to use to solve Galamsey, and it appears it's the same. But just a quick one before I even go into what Kennedy Japan is going to do when he gets the opportunity. I take you to some of the few remarks that the NDC made in their manifesto in relation to the fight against Galamsey. And of course, I mean, Ghanaians are watching, just a way of reminder, so that if President Mahama has also forgotten, we quickly have to reprint a copy of his manifesto for him so that he can check. One was to place a ban on a new mining activities in forest reserves. You are media guys, so I'm sure you can be able to update us on it. To place a ban on a new mining activities in forest reserves. That is page 61 of his own manifesto, that bridge format. And if he wants to refer to the comprehensive manifesto, to page 76. Amend the mineral and mining law to impose safer punishment for mining in water bodies. As at now, in this one, to score him 0, there is nothing that has been done on it. Decentralized regulatory and licensing processes for artisanal miners. First of all, we don't even know who the artisanal miners are, the data on the artisanal miners, where they operate, where they work, and whether or not such a regulatory framework, that supposed decentralization has also been done. Resource Geological Survey Department more prioritize geological investigation. Clearly, I mean, if you look at some of this things that has been outlined in their manifesto, I mean, it's so clear that the manifesto was just outsourced to some professor in the university to just write it. Because at the end of the day, you cannot just suppose the manifesto, what is written in the manifesto, to actual implementation that we are seeing on the ground. Set up a new Ghana Gold Board to regulate small-scale mining, provide support services, concession viability, blah, 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 blah. But you realize that right now, if you look at the mandate of the Gold Board, for instance, it's not really addressing Galamsey. Rather, they are into merchandising of gold. And that itself is also creating another problem in this way. That is the Cobra effect. They also spoke about use of AI, geofencing, GPS tracking of excavators to locate and monitor small-scale mining, illegal activity. They spoke about the repeal of the LI 2462, ban illegal mining and new mining activities in forest reserves. I think so far it is also important that in as much as they fail to implement all of this, at least we also have to commend them for the Blue Water Initiative. At least that one was also a campaign promise. I mean, to be fair to them, they've initiated it, but of course that alone is not enough. You can see it will be obvious, it's obviously ineffective and also inefficient. I mean, we look at this water blue gas, logistically, clearly they are constrained in terms of their capacity. And I am even against even that approach of solving Galamsey. So you don't need to commission those guys to be able to tell Ghana Police Service, to be able to tell the DCE in that particular constituency that there is a Galamsey going on. Of course, if you speak to them, the argument is that they are not really going to do anything sophisticated. All they are going to do is to relay information to government machinery and government agencies to be able to, they use the term blow whistle. But I'm saying that there is always a DCE there is a police, there is a government machinery, there is BNI, there is national security. Unfortunately, they waste all their resources on Abronye and other irrelevant issues instead of focusing on the fight against galamsey. So clearly, this is their own promise that they made in their own manifesto. I am yet to see one that they fully implemented or they've even implemented. But of course, I mean, I also have to be reasonable to them. One will ask that they just came into power. It's barely 9 months. They have a 4-year mandate. It is true, they have a 4-year mandate, but reasonably, there is a reasonable expectation of them. If you have a 4-year mandate and you give promises and assurances on how you are going to address a certain menace or certain challenge, which is very prevalent, ordinarily we expect that within your first year, at least you'll be able to fight it within some reasonable percentage, some 20 to 25%. But if you look at that, this, and in terms of all how they've listed so far, is only the Blue Water Guard that appears to be their only implementation plan. So on the score of even 1 to 100, I don't think they've done more than 3% as a party in terms of the fight against galamsey. But for me, I mean, beyond the holding them into account, I have gotten to a stage where I genuinely wish that the NDC will be able to address the galamsey menace. Because whichever way, I mean, Ghana is the only country that we have. And we are almost getting to a point where we are almost institutionalizing and rationalizing some of the menace that we have in this country. For instance, I have always maintained that when it comes to compliance and enforcement and regulatory issue, as a people, we've lagged behind. If you look at the enforcement of road safety regulations, extremely poor. We've not done so well. If you look at the enforcement when it comes to sanitation issues, we've not done so well. When it comes to basic enforcement of laws, even in our own country, I mean, coupled with the recent approach of governments, consistent approach of trying to weaken the judiciary and everything. So enforcement is really a problem. And I genuinely hope that we don't get to a stage where we institutionalize a situation just like the cholera, just like the flood, the perennial flooding, just like the annual deaths that we are witnessing on our roads, and then almost get to a situation where galamsey also becomes so normalized. So we are calling for action. It's a humble appeal that in case the president has forgotten, President Mahama has forgotten, this is his own manifesto. If he needs a copy, we'll print it under your cameras, we'll go and deliver it to him and remind him. So on that score, I feel that he's not demonstrated that goodwill. He's not demonstrated. The only thing that he's demonstrated when it comes to the fight against galamsey is inertia, because he appeared to know almost everything. President Akuffo did this, President Akuffo did that, President Akuffo is responsible for galamsey. If you recall, and if you were, of course, you are a media person, you, I'm sure, have been monitoring the media space, when he said that there were high-profile people in Akuffo's government, politically exposed persons who were doing galamsey. I want to ask him whether this same high-profile people, those names that he bundled around, mentioned some names that they were doing galamsey, I want to know if they are still there, the politically exposed persons. Because obviously now he's in power. President Akuffo obviously now, as they initially laid those unfortunate and unsuccessful schemes, obviously by now he's not owing any concessions. Why is the galamsey still going on? But beyond all this accountability check that we are doing and the reality check that we are doing, we are also pleading on him that it has an implication on our national security, on our national safety, on public health in particular. And we are calling on him that we want to see an action. This is not the usual politics. I want us to graduate into a stage where the discussion on galamsey is not only pivoted on how we want to make a certain government look bad, no, like they did to us. That's not what my interest is. But I want to get to a stage where we assess government based on its performance and its commitment when it comes to the fight against galamsey.
Right.
And gradually, President Mahama is losing the good role, especially when it comes to this fight. But I think on a substantive question as to what Kennedy is going to do different, no, it's important to address it. Mm-hmm. For me, if you look at the whole menace of galamsey, it's just holistically can be translated into one problem. And it has more to do with having the political will to enforce regulations and ensure compliance. If indeed there is an enforcement of regulations and compliance, I am not sure we may be in this situation that we find ourselves. And there's a more reason why you need that bold leadership, that honest leadership, that leadership who can challenge the status quo and say that enough is enough. Instead of even investing in galamsey, I am a leader who believes that there is a link between socio-economic transformation and agriculture. I am a leader who now believes that the new galamsey should be tourism. And that's what Japan is going to bring on board. Instead of focusing on Galamsey, he may channel the country's energy into tourism, into mass production through agriculture. And that I believe, and I'm very confident, is going to attend the socio-economic transformation of our country. Great.
But because you mentioned Galamsey, let's still dwell on that topic.
Yes.
I mean, your candidate has bluntly criticized his own party, their shortcomings and wrongdoings, and vowed to tackle issues of corruption, favoritism. But particularly, let's take a look at Galamsey.
Yeah.
It worsened under the previous NPP government.
What data shows? It's speculative.
I'm sure you will agree with me.
No, it's speculative.
But your candidate, like I said, has vowed to tackle it. What are his brilliant ideas in tackling that?
No, that's what I'm saying, that in Galamsey menace, you see, let me put it this way. Like all sectors of our economy and all sectors of our country, our problem has always...
We ain't some of the team cause watching on so. I'm not so Jimre Ewaha. That's an so bad in the Domiania. Only a percent realm. Now, you're some constant.